Today, we're going to be talking about my favorite books as a self-taught artist. All right, let's get started. I don't think I can hold these up for much longer. And this video was brought to you by Squarespace. So I'm the kind of person that loves to absorb new information through books. I love books so much. I've been reading like an absolute fiend ever since I was a kid, and I've never stopped. So this massive collection of art books, this like big stack that I want to share with you guys today, is only a small subset of my broader collection of art books. Maybe someday we'll talk about the entire collection. That would be a big chunky video. Comment below if you want to see that kind of thing. But I want to talk about my favorite art books as a self-taught artist, the art books that have taught me the most, not just the ones that have really pretty pictures in them, but the ones that have been most educational for me, the ones that I come back to time and time again, and the new ones that I am most excited about. Okay, so the first book that I want to talk about is Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way. This is a very text-heavy book. If you wanted lots of pretty pictures, this is not going to be the book for you, but if you wanted a book that really helped you unlock your creativity, that really enabled you to make creating a habit and just a thing that you do on occasion, this book is amazing. This book is essentially like an 8-week long course, 8 or 12 weeks, I think 8 weeks, and it's so useful. Right now I'm currently on the morning pages phase. The morning pages is an exercise where you write 3 pages of like written whatever, like train of thought journaling every single morning, and I found that very useful for me. I would recommend it to anyone and everyone looking to be more creative and looking to make creating like a habit. And I think this book is like literally for everyone, whether you're a novelist, a poet, a painter, or an animator, it's useful for you. And the next book that I want to talk about is the 30-Day Sketchbook Project by Minnie Small. This is mostly geared toward beginners, I will admit. That being said, if you want like just guided prompts every single day for a month, just something quick and easy to go through, I would recommend this book. It feels very straightforward. There are still actionable tips in here, even if you are an intermediate artist or, you know, an advanced artist. But if you're looking for like kind of more guided prompts and like more hand-holding, I guess, for an art challenge, this is great. This has like very like clear, actionable exercises and tips. And also it was made by fellow art YouTuber Minnie Small. Minnie Small is a great artist. Her work is so cute. It's so just fun and aesthetically pleasing, and I would highly recommend this. Again, for more like beginner to intermediate artists. So keep that in mind. The next couple of books that I want to recommend are really more for intermediate to advanced artists. You can extract some knowledge from this if you are a beginner, but I want you to know that like these might be a little bit too advanced for you, and they might not be worth the money until you are at a later stage. So the next book that I want to talk about is also by a now commonly known art YouTuber, Ian Roberts. It's Mastering Composition. This book is really useful. Composition is something a lot of people sleep on. People don't think about composition, but it is super important. Mastering composition, not like the sentence, not the book, is really vital in helping the emotion, the narrative of your work get across correctly, and also for your painting, your sculpture, your digital art piece, or whatever to succeed. So Ian Roberts' book on mastering composition mostly talks about still life and landscape paintings. I think there's some figurative stuff in here, but it is really, really useful for understanding the picture plane, grouping value masses, like color harmony. All of that stuff is talked about in this book in depth. He goes through just tons of exercises in here that are really useful, and it's a really good book. Like, I have been reading this over and over for a while now, and I would really, really suggest it if you are struggling with environment design or backgrounds. This is really useful. Before we dive into the rest of my recommendations, I want to briefly thank Squarespace for sponsoring this video. I've been using them for years, and last weekend I decided to completely redesign my website. In a matter of hours, I was able to update my site and create a design I felt truly embodied my personal brand and creative philosophy. With Squarespace's new Fluid engine, I was given more control over my site design than ever and could drag and drop blocks, overlap images, introduce some fun animated text, and ensure that my site was completely unique. I've also been spending a lot more time on my email newsletter recently, sending out monthly updates and discounts, and in just a couple of minutes, I can go from a basic template to a beautiful looking email that perfectly ties back into my website. If you want to give it a try, go to squarespace.com/Kelsey Rodriguez and use code Kelsey Rodriguez at checkout for 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Now back to the video. The next book is really just for landscape painters. It's called The Landscape Painting Workbook. The Landscape Painter's Workbook, sorry, by Mitchell Alwala. And wow, this book is so useful and guides you through several winning color palettes and how to think about value in your pieces to reinforce certain narrative elements or themes in your work. Okay, so total shift here, but the next book that I want to talk about is Loish's art style book. This is called The Style of Loish, and it's by Loish, so you know it's going to be a banger. And it's called Finding an Artistic Voice, is like the subtitle of it. And wow, this book is so incredible. First of all, Loish's work is just gorgeous. I would recommend it for that reason alone. It's absolutely worth it to just get an insight into her process and like her mind, because her work is so singular in style. You know, I think there's really no one that creates quite like her. But in this book, Loish talks about how she found her artistic voice and the process of getting there. And I think the things that she discusses in this book are so relevant for every single artist. But if you are a digital artist, of course, this will be even more relevant to you because that's what Loish usually does. So it's so gorgeous. I want to frame this book. It's so pretty. The cover is just gorgeous. I also have her other book, The Sketchbook of Loish, and that one's gorgeous too. Recommend them both, but I think this one is a little bit more educational, a little bit more tutorial or like value focused, so I wanted to bring this one up in this particular video, but maybe someday I will talk about all of the Loish books that I have because they're so pretty. They're so pretty. It's so worth it. Like, it's so worth it. Okay, I've talked about this next book before, and it's, again, an art YouTuber's book, but it is Color and Light by James Gurney, a guide for the realist painter. And if you have been confused about color, you don't know how to light certain scenes, you really want to create from imagination, but you're very confused about how color and light work together, this book is super useful. Like, super useful. James Gurney was the creator of Dinotopia, and in this book he goes through tons and tons of paintings from Dinotopia, sketches, how he used color to reinforce storytelling and times of day, and just like so useful. This book, I would say, is probably best for intermediate to advanced painters, but could be useful for beginners. In the first section of the book, Gurney does go over some basics of color theory and how color and light work together, but I would say that like the latter half of this book is really best suited for more intermediate artists. But that being said, if you wanted to pick this up now at whatever stage you are in your journey, it will be a book that you come back to time and time again. I absolutely promise you, because there is so much information packed into this, and it's a great resource. And the next book that I have for you guys is not by James Gurney, but is also called Color and Light. This is 3D Total's Artist's Master Series book. It includes stuff by Charlie Pickard, Yemi Lenoff, Guiz, and Nathan Folks. I probably said all of those names wrong. I am so sorry, but this book is really great. It's really great. It talks about the science of color and chroma and saturation and like value in ways that I haven't heard it talked about before. Studying this book in depth, in like the first couple of chapters, we talk in depth about color and value, really helped it click for me in a way that it hadn't before, and helped me make some of the best paintings that I've ever made that I am so proud of. So it's amazing. I would say this book is probably best for, again, intermediate to advanced artists, people who want like a more nuanced understanding of color. Color is something that like you will spend the rest of your life studying, and there is no shame in that. It's just the way that it is. But this book does focus quite a bit on digital art. I would say that if you are a traditional artist, this book probably still has value for you, but it's probably best for folks who are digital artists or who are hybrid artists and like a bunch of things. Okay, so the last two books that I have are really more focused toward traditional artists, specifically oil painters. That's the kind of art that I make. That's the kind of art that I really enjoy. So the first one is The Oil Painter's Color Handbook by Todd Casey. This is so insanely detailed. into, like, this book goes into historical color palettes used like all throughout history, when that changed, like the history of color, and also how pigments interact. So if you wanted to like get all of the value of doing a bunch of color mixing exercises without having to actually do them, this book is great because it goes over how pigments interact with each other. If you wanted to, like, let's say, copy the Impressionists, this book talks about what was on the Impressionists' palettes and how those colors worked together, and some modern analogs. So this book is like, it's so insanely useful. I have not dived into it super deep yet, but I can already tell this book is really going to be something special. This last one I think is almost everyone's favorite. It is Richard Schmid's Alla Prima 2. If you are an oil painter, have heard of oil painting, and are interested in learning, this book is for you. Richard Schmid passed away a couple years ago, but he was a well-beloved realist painter and really, I think, embodied the same like deliberate brushwork. Richard Schmid was able to capture this like very realist kind of nature in his work, but also kept it quite loose, but still very representational. There are a lot of dichotomies going on there, but they all work together in really interesting ways in his work, and he was just a master at what he did. He's an incredible painter. I am so sad that we lost him, and I am so glad that we have his knowledge distilled into Alla Prima 2. It is an expensive book, I will admit, the most expensive of all of the books on here. That's part of why I saved it for last. It talks about Richard Schmid's process. It talks about like his advice toward like every aspect of painting, from mindset to execution to brushwork to color harmony to composition to, like, you know, what to bring with you when you paint outside. It really goes in detail. This book could, I think, single-handedly replace like at least a year of art school, in my eyes anyway. So that is it for the art books that I want to share with you guys today. If you enjoyed this video, if you want me to go in depth on any of these books, please let me know. If you want to see my entire art book collection, also let me know, because that would be a chunky video. So I hope you have a great rest of your day. There will be more videos happening over here if you wanted to watch some more, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.